In 2022, I raised 10 million naira for my business by hacking the secrets of writing winning grant proposals. In this video, I share 4 easy steps that help you get started on achieving the same results even better. If you watch this video to the end, I will give you a bonus tip that is probably the most important tip in helping you to write a winning grant application. So stay till the end of this video. Now let's get into it. There are often different formats in writing grant proposals. However, most grant proposals request for similar information. While some will have a list of questions that guide you in providing answers that sum up your proposals, others may ask you to write several pages that communicate the story of your project. Whichever format the grant proposals takes, there's some basic information that you must always expect to provide answers to. Some of this information includes your executive summary, the background of your project, the goal of your project, the uniqueness of your project, the expected outcome or the impact of the project, and implementation budget and timeline. Other sources of funding, reference letters, and letters of support. Now, if you have never written a grant proposal before, here are 4 detailed steps to get you started on writing a winning grant proposal. Step 1, make your first draft. Just do it. Get started by reading the grant application carefully. At this stage, it's important to determine if your project is typically the type that grantors want to fund. If the grant funds your kind of business, then go ahead. Highlight all the questions that you are required to answer and any material that you have to include. Make sure you think through the questions one at a time. Write a rough summary statement, which would be your first draft, for each of the questions as you have thought about it. At this stage, it does not matter how good it looks. Just get your ideas on paper and every other thing will flow. Make sure you do this in a separate document from the live application page. Do not edit your application live to avoid submitting an application that is filled with errors. This usually happens, and when your grantors see this, they think you're not serious. Think about it. There are so many different people applying for the same grant as you, and then your application pops up and you can't even spell some things right or get grammar, structure, and all those things right. They will just think you are not serious and throw your application away. So make sure that you avoid submitting applications that are filled with errors. And one way that you can do this is by writing or summarizing or preparing your application outside of the live application form. Step 2, prepare your supporting documents. Some of the supporting documents that you need to include your financial plan, your marketing plan, your business registration particulars and certificates, your official means of identification, and so on, depending on what your funders need. But these are some of the basics that they always request for. You need to put all your supporting documents together and keep them handy so that when you are creating your grant proposals, you can attach all the required documents and you make sure you don't leave any one of them out. Once you complete your grant application, make sure you attach all of these documents and submit on time. Step number 3, make your proposal shine. Edit your proposal and polish it until it looks its best. Go through it over and over again and make sure your ideas are clear. Ensure that the delivery is also very superb because your grantors, whether you like it or not, they also want to be wowed. Proofread your proposal carefully. You can get a fresh pair of eyes to look through your write-up and vet it for you before you transfer it into the live application. This ensures that even when you are fatigued and you've gone over your documents severally, sometimes you may not be able to spot those mistakes. When you get somebody else outside of yourself or your team to review your documents, it does help to comb through all of the unnecessary errors that may be present. Step 4 and the last step, define your cover letter. What's your cover letter? Your cover letter is simply an executive summary of your request that gives your reader a clear idea of the content of each segment of your application. It clearly communicates the purpose of your project, the amount of money you are requesting, and it also mentions a list of documents that you have included in your proposal. If your cover letter is written well, it should clearly and ideally get the reader to become positively curious about your project. Finally, you need to proofread and edit again. I can never emphasize the importance of proofreading and editing your document. You want to make sure that your write-up is error-free. It is going to be an automatic disqualifier in many cases, if not most. Now, you need to double check your write up and all your supporting documents to make sure that you have all the necessary things that have been requested included in your application submission. And now, when you are done with all of this, you can transfer your answers from maybe your Word document or your system into the live application form and submit. Guys, be sure to keep track of the deadline and make sure that you submit ahead of time in order to meet the deadline and also to avoid the risk of experiencing network issues due to overcrowded servers that close very, very close to the deadline. So the problem is that when you start approaching the deadline, many people want to submit when they say, oh, this is the time that you're supposed to submit. And when so many people come to submit their applications close to the deadline, it means that you would experience a lot of server errors, slow network, and things like that. And you'll find out that you are not able to submit your application at the end of the day. This personally happened to me a couple of times when I was inexperienced and I was just pushing and trying to see how much I could do before the deadline, and I would try to submit close to the deadline, and I'll just find out that maybe 3 days to the deadline the network is just jammed and I couldn't submit, and that was how I fell out of that process. So you don't want to be like past me. You want to make sure that you submit your grant application before the deadline. In fact, way before the deadline is a super plus for you. Now, since you've watched this video to this point, here is a bonus point for you. Spend a good portion of your time making sure that your budget aligns with what the funders are willing to give. This is very important. One of the questions that you will always encounter is one about the budget for your project. The financial request for your project is a largely important aspect of your application because your funders want to know whether they have the capacity to assist you or not. So you need to spend an important amount of time working through this section, both in your written application and in the supporting documents, that's your financial projection and your budget preparation. This is to make sure that your narrative tallies, right? You don't want to say one thing in your written application and another thing in your financial projection or your budget. In essence, you need to carefully define your project's budget. You need to craft the budget summary narrative and you need to create a budget justification. That is how you will use the funds and how they will help you move from where you currently are to your next milestone. To learn more about writing winning grant proposals, subscribe to my channel so you never miss out on new content.